Please welcome the Dean of the School of Law, Bobby Chestnut.
Distinguished guests, faculty and staff, family and friends, lawyers of the class of 2023, welcome. Everyone, make sure you're seated. We're here to mark a great milestone in your lives, graduation from law school. Today is also meaningful and unusual because it's the first time, I believe, maybe the last time, that the entire class of 2023 is gathered in a single place with all of you here. You didn't have that chance in August of 2020 for obvious reasons when your education began here. That month we met in smaller groups, some of you in person, many online, remotely, for orientation. I did have the honor of addressing you that day when I was Associate Dean by video, and I told you then that in about 1,000 days, more or less, we'd all convene again, all of us together, but that you'd be changed by then. You'd be changed because during those 1,000 days, you would acquire what you could even call superpowers, the powers to see what others can't see, to hear what others can't hear, to understand what others can't understand, and to solve problems that others think have no solution. You can now achieve these things. You can do them for yourselves, your clients, for your communities, for society. You can do these things that some think are impossible. And that's a good thing because the people of Texas established this university, this school of law, to produce leaders and lawyers who would make a difference. That's your legacy, it's your responsibility. When you put it that way, it makes me think of the words of the philosopher Peter Parker, who said, "With great power comes great..." Well done, Stanley would be so proud. That means you must use your abilities wisely, generously, with grace, to find ways to give back to the society that made your education possible. And you know who else made that education possible? I'll give you a hint. They're here, and they're all around us here, and they're watching on video. These great things we're celebrating today, they were made possible by mothers and fathers and spouses and partners and brothers and sisters and close friends, extended family, pets, coffee, possibly beer, I don't know. Graduates, I invite you to rise and salute your families and friends and supporters who made this possible. Thank you. And now I want to say a word on behalf of my faculty colleagues. This may sound cliched, but it's so true. We are so proud of y'all. We're proud of the hard work that we saw you put in our classes. We're proud and we're grateful for all the ways you've given back to enrich the life of the school. It's said that Texas law students are difference makers, and I think that's very true. Some of you made a difference through unbelievable amounts of pro bono projects. Some of you did it through clinics. Some of you did it through internships. Some of you did it through the work on journals or in student organizations, in the advocacy program. Some of you even did it by making fun of us in assault and flattery. Thank you. But whatever you did while you were here, you carried on the great tradition that makes this place your own. And speaking of tradition, today marks your transition into one of the most wonderful traditions, perhaps the greatest club or association in the world, the Texas Law Alumni Association. Texas Law alumni are leaders in all they do all over the world, in public service, private practice, the judiciary, executive office, you name it. They do it all, and starting today, that includes all of you too. Today is commencement, which refers to a beginning, and that's what we're really talking about. It's the end of one kind of relationship with us, your student-teacher relationship, and the transition into a new relationship. And I mean this, and I know my colleagues all agree with this, from the bottom of our hearts, don't be strangers. There's nothing better in the life of a teacher when you get an email or a call out of the blue or a note or a knock on the door, and it's a former student telling you how it's going, what they've been up to. Am I right about that? Is that not? It's the... And I beg of you, please keep us posted on how it's going. We care so much. Now, with these words of welcome and congratulations said, I now have the distinct pleasure of introducing our student speaker. He's your permanent class president, Jason Onyediri. Jason is from Houston, Texas, and today he's going to join the ranks of those we call double Longhorns, having received his undergraduate degree, that was in biochemistry with a philosophy minor, here at the University of Texas at Austin. In law school, he's been the editor-in-chief of the Texas Law Review. After graduation, he'll have the honor of being a clerk, first for Judge Royce Lamberth, Senior United States District Judge for the District of Columbia, and of course, a member of the Texas Law Alumni Association, class of '67. And then onward for Judge Carl Stewart of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. Please join me in welcoming your permanent class president for the class of 2023, Jason Onyediri.
Congratulations, not only to all of you, but to Dean Chesney on the completion of his first year as dean. Another round of applause, please. In law school, we read a lot of cases. Cases about all sorts of important and complex things, like fox hunting and hairy hands. These cases all contribute to the development of the law. But at the core of each of these cases is a story about real people and their lived experiences. As we graduate today and begin our own contributions to the development of the law, I am honored to have the opportunity to reflect on our story here as students at Texas. So, with the caveat that we all have an individual story worth telling, I think our collective story goes a little like this. Chapter 1, 1L. Our story begins with an invisible antagonist, COVID-19. That's right, our first year of law school looked very different from previous graduates of Texas law. We began our legal education in a global health crisis that touched many of us personally. We spent that first year on Zoom, in breakout rooms, or socially distanced and behind masks. We had also just made it through a summer of divisive protest, and then we experienced the death of a Supreme Court justice and lived through one of the most contentious presidential elections in modern history. These events and the issues that they implicated, race, the rule of law, democracy, made it critically evident just how important what we were learning in law school was. And the wonderful faculty of Texas law, essential characters in our story, impressed this upon us from the very start. In fact, before our first day of law school, each of us logged onto Canvas and watched a Welcome to Texas video prepared by then Dean Ward Farnsworth, in which he said something that has stuck with me since. He said, "The world needs you. It needs you urgently. And it urgently needs you to be great lawyers." And so we got to work. In our first year, we learned to think like lawyers. We learned to read like lawyers, we learned to write like lawyers, and when we were asked difficult questions in class, at the very least, we learned to sound like lawyers. We wrote memos and briefs, we determined subject matter jurisdiction, we calculated expectation damages, and we applied the rule against perpetuities, begrudgingly. Just as importantly, we made friends, we forged relationships, and we otherwise managed to be social while social distancing. We went on walks, we studied outdoors. A few sections even managed to throw law proms their 1L year. We did trivia and scavenger hunts on Zoom to break the ice figuratively, and when that first winter storm came, we relied on one another, perhaps to break some ice literally. So yes, there was fear and imposter syndrome and a learning curve and a grading curve, but we got through it, and we got through it together. Chapter 2, 2L. In our second year of law school, things began to look a little more normal. We returned to in-person class meetings and extracurriculars. We realized that our peers and our professors were taller or shorter than we expected in person. We learned what we looked like beneath our mask, and we had to start wearing pants again. But also true to a typical second year of law school, we worked incredibly hard. Many of us put a lot on our plates. We joined organizations and journals, we chose challenging classes and participated in mock trial and moot court. We became research assistants and teaching quiz masters. We joined clinics, ramped up our pro bono efforts, and we interviewed for jobs and internships. But we didn't just work hard, we had some fun. We slowly and safely began having more in-person events on and off campus. We had an incredibly successful law prom, despite having to evacuate due to a fire alarm. And on that note, throughout this ceremony, please no vaping. Thank you very much. We also began to spend more time in the library and in the atrium and in the lounge. On Thursday nights, we made it to bar review. And on Friday mornings, we somehow made it to class, despite having made it to bar review. So in our second chapter, we worked hard, we had fun, and we generally started to get the hang of this whole law school thing. Chapter 3, 3L. They say your first year of law school scares you to death. Your second year of law school works you to death. And your third year, well, it bores you to death. But at least one of those is definitely wrong. Our third year was anything but boring. By our third year, our invisible antagonist, COVID-19, was largely defeated. Our annual Halloween party, Hex Parte, came back, bar review was in full swing, and we had a law prom, this time with no evacuations. As 3Ls, we were law school veterans, but there was still plenty to learn. Our third year gave us a better idea of what we still needed to learn, what we still wanted to learn. Our future litigators took classes in evidence and advocacy. Our future transactional attorneys took classes in business and finance, and our future judicial clerks, well, they took whatever class would preserve their GPAs. That one was personal. A few summers of work, and after a few summers of work, many of us had secured jobs, fellowships, and clerkships. A couple protagonists come to mind. Our 2023 Public Interest Students of the Year, Sally Vandenberg and Danny Woodward. Now, Sally will continue her excellent public interest work at Root and Rebound, where she'll provide direct legal services to formerly incarcerated parents facing legal barriers to reentry. Danny will work with the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, where his focus will be on pursuing redress for immigrant families separated in Texas. Congratulations, Danny and Sally. In our third year, we took leadership roles in journals and we turned seminar papers into academic publications. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fine folks at the Texas Law Review, particularly the notes office. Gloria Jones, Zach Bador, Kat Canby, Paige Welch. You guys helped so many students, including myself, become better writers and publish their work. Congratulations to you all. As 3Ls, we set the tone for the law school. Our efforts in organizations like TMLS, APALSA, CHELSA, the Women's Law Caucus, and others generated a culture of belonging and inclusion. And on that note, I want to give a special shout out to Sam Jefferson. Now, it's important that you know that Sam took a break from everything on his plate to testify at our state's capitol in response to legislation that threatens to upend what makes this law school such a vibrant and inclusive community. Sam, I know there's more work to be done, but well done, and congratulations. After these 3 years, we're closer to each other than ever. How could we not be? We survived law school, a few winter storms, a pandemic. We've struggled together, we've traveled together, we've lived together. And when we're done celebrating this accomplishment, when the halls of our law school are empty, when the fireworks have settled, and when the champagne has gone flat, remember that our stories do not end on chapter 3. I know you'll all do terrific work, and I look forward to seeing you all throughout your careers in clinics and in courtrooms and in corporations, but also at cookouts and at weddings and at banquets and reunions. So as we turn to the future and begin to write the next chapter, remember that the world needs you. It needs you urgently, and it urgently needs you to be great lawyers. That's a powerful reminder of how we started here at Texas Law, and you know what they say, what starts here changes the world. Congratulations to the class of 2023, and hook 'em.